This is the Northstar Sports Show with ET&B.
Northstar Sports Show with ET&B. I'm Ethan, the ET part of this podcast.
And I'm Brandon, the B part of this podcast.
And this is our first time doing it on video, so so give us a break if it's cheesy at all.
It'll be very, very awkward here.
It will be. So this is our first time, but we're trying something new. This is eventually how we are going to do this podcast, is through the video. I think that's kind of our future goal, is to kind of get it over video, but we're going to have it both audio and video no matter what, but I think the main way we're going to do it is video.
I think video is a better way to go, because then we don't have to have cheesy pictures up there to fill in the void of nothing when we talk.
Right, but we're just getting started, so this is something new to us, something that we're going to learn along the way. Obviously, first one's probably going to be the worst one, but we can only go up from here. That's the beauty part of it, is we can only get better. So if you haven't, go and check out our first episode. We kind of just recap the Vikings season and what it was about, the state of the team, and kind of the all-pro snubs, and we touched on free agency a little bit, but we also looked at the opponents for next year. So that one's a longer one. So that one's about an hour and a half. It's a good listen, though. We give you a lot of information. We recap the season, as I mentioned. So we apologize. It's a little longer, but it is a good listen.
It's a great listen. It has some great pictures in it, too. I went and found those. The dumpster fire one's my favorite one.
Yeah, that one's about the Saints, if you didn't know. But we'll get going here. This one will just be a little bit of an update one, kind of on the state of the NFL and the coaches, kind of the coaching carousel that happens every single season. I think the biggest one for me is the fact that Urban Meyer is going to be the Jaguars' new head coach. That one is huge because he retired as the Ohio State head coach. He was an analyst for a couple of years, and now he's back at coaching. He never coached in the NFL, so this is going to be his NFL debut, with the Jaguars. And, this is going to be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting because he's going to come out with the first overall pick, too, which I think is going to be Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be hard-pressed, for anyone else to beat him out or the first pick. He could go Justin Fields, but I doubt it. So he's coming in with a fresh starting quarterback, lots of cap space to do what he wants. He's in one of those prime positions to do great, kind of like who's the new coach for the Chargers?
You know what? I don't think they've actually announced a new coach.
Have they not?
I don't think they have yet. I don't remember seeing anything on the LA Chargers about a new coach yet.
Oh, well, then it's like that coaching spot. You got Herbert there and a bona fide number one quarterback and a lot of cap space to do with whatever you want.
Yeah, you really do. The only reason I think that he would go with Justin Fields is because he's an Ohio State boy. And, as a coach, he coached there for so many years, brought him a national championship. I think it'd be hard-pressed for him to be like, no. Because I think he's going to have, that feeling of like, I can bring in a player of my own. Like, to be the first pick, to be a guy that you know pretty well, I think he'd be, leaning towards that. But I think he'd be smart to not do that because the way Justin Fields played this year, I thought we seen him take a step backwards, especially in big games like against Indiana. On the Eagles practice squad, but I think, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see because they almost just need to completely rebuild.
And I think it's going to be rebuild after they get rid of Watson, and they're going to get the house for him, and it's rightfully so. He's worth, I think I saw something they're asking for like 3 first-round picks at minimum in a player, and you're going to air out him. It sounds like J.J. Watt doesn't want to be back either, so they're going to gut him. It seems like they're going to gut the team and just restart all over again.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting because whoever gets hired as a head coach is kind of going into a really bad situation out there, and it's not their fault. Because on that note, Deshaun Watson just said, he doesn't care who the new head coach is. He wants out. He's done.
And, he has a choice to do that. Obviously, he has a choice to do that, and it must just be the culture in the locker room that he's just very much against and doesn't like the way it looks. And I've heard some things that they're just not super what he's about, the whole social justice and everything. Everyone has their own opinion on it, and his opinion is, I want out.
Yeah, he definitely wants out, and that's unfortunate because he's such a great player on a really bad team. You just can't but help feel like even if he was on just a halfway better team, that he would have brought them into the playoffs and made a deep playoff push. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is going to be. Now, the next coach who is being hired is Matt Patricia. He's going back to the Patriots.
And what's he going back for? He's going to help with scouting, and he's going to work with the Patriots coaching, which I think he goes back to where he not started, right? Or is that where he started?
I want to say that's where he started. It might not be his start. That's kind of where he started to get recognition.
Yeah, so he's going to go back there with Belichick, and Belichick needs the help. It sounds like his OC is going to leave, and he's going to take his assistants with him. In the last few years, coaches have been falling out of the Patriots too, one by one. And Belichick needs some kind of help. He's a great coach, but help me.
Right. The next hire is going to be a pretty momentous one. It's going to be full-time assistant will be Jennifer King. She's being hired by the Washington football team as their new full-time assistant coach. That's pretty big. That's the first female who is going to be the first full-time assistant coach.
She's the first female, and she's the first African-American female offensive assistant, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge step. I mean, obviously nothing wrong with it.
No.
And I think you need a lot. Great ideas are great ideas. If she's coaching, great. Just elevate it, promote it all the way through. I mean, not much more to talk about other than it's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that the 49ers, I believe they have a female coach. I think she's a quality control coach, something like that, or a special teams coach. She's a coach.
She's a linebacker coach.
It could be that. I just know she's a coach on that team, and, well, she's done a pretty good job. I mean, last year they went to the Super Bowl, so she's obviously not doing a bad job. So, and just to touch on that, it's good to see that women are finally making a step up into pro sports, and they're getting into coaching positions and big-time coaching positions. An offensive assistant, that's huge. You've got, probably the third word on offensive players other than the GM head coach, and, then you're probably the next one. So it's really cool to see that. And, there's, again, like we mentioned, there's nothing wrong with it. If you can coach, you can coach. Yeah. That's as simple as it is. But I think a lot of, maybe not just women, but people are scared to sometimes take that step and go to that next level because of how the past is and how it looks. But, you got two now who are on teams who, one went to the Super Bowl last year. This year, the Washington football team was in a playoff spot. So they're making strides, and I think within the next couple of years we'll see a lot of women coaches come out of the woodwork just because these two, maybe not necessarily have paved the way, but maybe they have.
Well, I mean, the first ones always paved the way, and they're on good teams that are making the playoffs. Niners didn't this year, but they also had a dump truck load of injuries that got rid of most of their whole team, so it's kind of hard to win when you don't have any star players. And then with the Niners, if she helped in any way turn around from what the starting, was it 1-5 for them?
Something like that, yeah.
Into the playoffs, and she helped with Alex Smith too, that'd be... How do you not promote that?
Right. She seems to be a good fit there in San Francisco. The next one is kind of a 3-in-1-parter. So the Alabama has hired Bill O'Brien to be their offensive coordinator. Now he is going into a spot where Steve Sarkisian was just last year. And Alabama seems to be a revolving door of offensive coordinators, just like the Vikings are. They're so good that they get an opportunity somewhere else. They take it, whether they're good or not, that's always remains to be seen. But so he's going to be their new offensive coordinator. We'll see how that works out. I liked him after he came out of Penn State, but then he went to the Houston Texans, and I didn't think he was a great fit there. But then Doug Marrone, who was the Jaguars' old head coach, who just got fired this year. He is going to be the Alabama offensive line coach now. And now coming in for the Jaguars to be their offensive coordinator will be Darrell Bevell, the Lions' interim head coach just this past season. So, I mean, a lot of shift change there, not only with the Lions. I mean, they've hired their new head coach, GM, everything, but also with the Jags and the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're getting a couple new coaches, and the Jags have their new head coach and now their new offensive coordinator.
And you mean, I overheard this one thing, and about every year it's from 5 to 8 coaches every year. Head coaches are axed, and they hire 5 to 8 more. And on average, only 2 of those coaches actually work and stick and rock it out.
Right.
And I mean, you kind of look in the situation like we talked about. He has his first overall pick and whoever he wants, and he has a lot of space and cap space to do whatever he wants. So we can see how that works. Chargers won. Eagles, I think, aren't going to be super great. Yeah. It's just a lot of a coach carousel, like you said.
Yeah.
And then with the Alabama thing, you get to watch and see if Bill O'Brien brings whatever culture that Deshaun Watson and a lot of the team hated. If he brings that there, if he makes it through the season, if who's their head coach again? I'm drawing a blank.
For Alabama?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick Saban.
Nick Saban. If Nick Saban doesn't like it, he'll axe him. The guy's very few words.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see, and it just kind of roll along with the rest of the teams.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, a lot of new coaches, a lot of new faces everywhere. So we have to wait till the regular season to really find out what happens. The next one that we're gonna hit on before we go to some Viking coaching news is the Chiefs' offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. Now, I seen a stat when Andy Reid was head coach of Philadelphia, the coaches / players he had on that team that are now coaches, it is ridiculous. I think it was like a solid 6, 7, 8 coaches who he had on that staff that are now coaching on contender teams, or at least offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators on those teams. It is insane, and Eric Bieniemy is one of them. Obviously, he's the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. He has said he wants to be a head coach. Now, he's not going to take over in Kansas City anytime soon. Andy Reid's got that locked up. But that's going to be interesting because look at what he's done in that system now. Is that just Patrick Mahomes? Is it Andy Reid? We don't know how much say, Reid has in that offensive playbook. I'm assuming he has most. But who knows? It could be all Eric Bieniemy for all we know.
I mean, looking at the play selection and the play design, I would assume Andy Reid has a hand in it.
Yeah.
But if it's, what's his name? I just forgot the OC's name.
Eric Bieniemy.
Eric, if it's mostly him that's drawing up these plays, because on 99% of the plays, you have Kelsey, you have Hill, you have people open.
Yeah.
Granted, they're amazing players,
Right.
but if this is his play design to do this, he deserves a head coaching job. And I don't know, I'd be scared of a coach that could draw up that kind of playbook and just to always have someone open. Granted, you need a quarterback to do it, but
Right.
if the Chargers haven't hired anybody, they face him twice a year, so they know who he is.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. So maybe, hey, Chargers, we just figured out your coaching problem. Maybe do we fix it? But the next one is kind of a sad one. Gary Kubiak has officially retired yet again. He did retire a couple years ago before coming on to the Vikings coaching job, and now he retires yet again. So we are without an offensive coordinator yet again, 5th year in a row that we'll be looking for a new one. Sounds like since Anthony Lynn was hired by the Lions to be their offensive coordinator, it sounds like, I'm guessing, that we're going to hire from within. I would guess it will be Gary Kubiak's son, Clint Kubiak, since he was the the quarterbacks coach, and he has a relationship with Kirk. So I think that might be the next move, because there really isn't anybody else out there to hire right now, and unless you want to take a chance with Adam Gase, but I don't think you want to take that chance.
No, thank you. That is a hard no.
Yeah.
After he's left a few teams, we were talking about it earlier, man, did their stats go up after he left. It's been a very, very rough playing under him, I guess. And I think you saw Cousins grow a little bit this season, so I think it's a good idea to bring Clinton. Like you said, he has that connection with Cousins already. And he's going to probably run near the same system, so it's not going to be such a hard change for the players. I think it's the most natural choice. Is it the best choice? Probably not. I mean, there's a lot of good coaches that went around, and maybe we could have put a bid in for them, but we'll have to see how the season plays out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Again, we can't really see how anything turns out until the regular season starts, so we got a couple months for that to begin yet. But then to some players who have not only retired, but have signed with new teams. The first one, Phillip Rivers, he announced his retirement last week. That was a sad day. I was hoping because I think the way it sounded, the Colts were going to bring him back for a second year in Indianapolis, and he just brought him to the playoffs here, and he looked really good. He had another 4,000-yard season, and I think I read a stat. He had 7 straight 4,000-yard seasons, and I think he led the league. I think he had the longest streak of 4,000-yard seasons, so that's now over. He's retired, but he has said that he is going to stay in football, but he's going to go back home to Alabama and be a high school head coach. I forgot the name of the school, but yeah, so he's going to go home, be a head coach. I mean, if I were in the NFL and I spent, upwards of 10 seasons in the NFL, and then I had a chance to come back to my hometown and home state and coach and be a head coach, I'd probably take it.
Oh, I mean, why would you not? You're back home, you're with I saw the quote that he wants to start his family with his wife, and he already has 9 kids, and there's no starting this. And if he's going to start again, man, his wife better be ready. He's going to go for the record most kids. Oh. But no, I think it's a great thing for him to get to coaching, minus his quarterbacks, because they're all going to throw god ugly. And especially if they try to mimic the way he throws, they're going to dislocate shoulders. It'd be a bad time for him. But no, he was always fun to watch. He put up, like you said, monster numbers year after year after year. It just sucks that they couldn't build a team around him to help give him any kind of help.
Yeah,
I think the last real player that helped him was Keenan Allen, and I can't think of anyone else on that team besides Justin Herbert for the Chargers, and that's about it. They had LT for a while towards the end of his career. They had Antonio Gates, which was an amazing player for him, and they just couldn't do anything more with that.
Yeah, which it's really unfortunate because you mentioned the weapons right there that he had, and they couldn't bring him to the promised land. And it's just like, and we kind of talked about it before, like he either has a really good offense and no defense, or a really good defense and no offense to speak of. It was tick and tack both. It was just either or, and it's so unfortunate that he wasn't able to reach the promised land. But he's got a lot of stats. I believe he finishes 5th in almost every passing category. So again, not a bad career, a great career. He's always that. You could tell he was from I think I've seen a couple posts. It was like, congrats on a great career, daggum good player. So it's just, and that was him. That southern side to him always came out, especially when he was trash talking.
He's got that. I saw a tweet from J.J. Watt talking about when he played him the one time, and the linebacker was out of position for the blitz the defense was going to do, and Phillip Rivers looked at him and told him to get in the right spot and moved him over in the defense before the blitz, and then proceeded to beat the blitz. I just enjoyed it. It's so funny to me. And there's a couple other ones I saw that were just as of the same kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is such a smart quarterback. I mean, just a funny guy, honestly. Just he loved the game is what it was. He really did. And, so it's going to be sad to see him go, but there's another quarterback opening happening for the Indianapolis Colts. So it's going to be another year where we're seeing a lot of quarterbacks go away from their teams and bringing a lot of new faces in. So the next one we'll talk about is Dwayne Haskins. The Steelers decide to pick him up as a free agent, bring him in. That'll be interesting. I think he's like a smaller Big Ben, I think, is what they see him as, because when you look at him in college, Dwayne Haskins, he had the big plays. He had the big arm, just like Big Ben. And then he comes into the NFL and he doesn't do well, whether that's just him not giving it at all in NFL and screwing off. I mean, how many times have we seen him in the news for, he's out here doing this, he's doing that. The first game that he won, he wasn't even in the offensive huddle when they went to go kneel. They had to have Case Keenum come out and kneel the ball because he's over there taking pictures with fans. Now, if I remember correctly, there's that box from the 25 to the 25 that you have to stay in while the game's being played, and otherwise it's a flag or something, or it's a personal foul. And it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I understand you're excited for your first win, but no other quarterback has done that, no other player has done that, and that's for a reason. They're act like you've won before. I mean, it's unfortunate because I think he wants to be that good guy, the good quarterback, the good, the team leader. I think he maybe just had some bad influencers or something, because I think he has potential, but I think he might have shot it away.
He might have, and you look at other players who bounced back from very, very awful things, like Chris Carter. Yeah, he came back from the Eagles, and the Eagles cut him because he had a lot of off the field issues, and came back to the Vikings, and he had his Hall of Fame career. And I'm not saying that he could be a Hall of Famer. He's got a long ways to go for that, but I don't know. I think the Steelers are just trying to put together the most annoying, fan-hated team they can. Because between him, the receiver, and God, there was another one, and all three of them are just like bottom of the fan base. No one likes him. But if he works out, he does. I mean, you just gotta keep your nose clean. And it doesn't seem like it's that hard. I mean, honestly, like you said, 2 minutes. You couldn't wait 2 minutes to go take pictures with the fans, and you're sitting there. You're winning the game. The kneel is still winning the game.
Yeah.
Don't let someone else come and take your thunder away.
Right. And that's the thing is, it's like the kneel down's the best part of your win. You get to kneel down and say, "Ha, this is a winning move." You don't.
I win.
Exactly. You don't have to do anything. So, yeah, maybe he just didn't have the right leadership with Washington, and that 1 year that he didn't have it wasn't enough, because Ron Rivera is a great leader. Let's face it, he's a great leader. But, maybe it wasn't at the right time. He didn't get it in time, and maybe, who knows how many years Big Ben has left? 2, 3, maybe. Maybe it's the next year's his last one, but I think the Steelers probably hope to bring him in under Big Ben, and they kind of circulate him in as the next Big Ben or Big Ben's replacement. Maybe that's their hope. But so that was really the only big signing, really. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet. Last year, it seems like the past 2-3 years, right after the season got done, it was this guy's being traded, this quarterback going here, this receiver's going there, and we weren't even to the official offseason yet. So this offseason starting a little more quiet. Coaching-wise, not so much, but player-wise, a lot more quiet. And then we'll just go into a couple more things, just a couple random things for the games on Sunday. We'll do another episode on the AFC and NFC championship games and the Super Bowl. We'll do, I think, an episode for the championship games and then a Super Bowl special, I think is our plan. But for those games, Mahomes possibly couldn't play, possibly could, because he was out in the concussion protocol. Plus, whatever was wrong with his foot, that didn't obviously bug him on Sunday, because he looked just fine. No picks. I think he was over 65 completion percentage, over 300 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So he looked just fine. And then for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Packers, Antoine Winfield and Antonio Brown were both out. Well, they didn't need them, but that's just, it goes to show, it's like, ooh, how much of a difference would that have made? Because obviously Buccaneers won 31-26, and watching the highlights, it just felt like they were missing something in that defensive backfield with Winfield Jr. out.
He's been the starter all year, so you lose that. And their other starting safety was out, too.
Yeah,
so they had both backup safeties in there. And, playing against some quarterbacks, it doesn't matter. Playing against Rodgers, it matters a little bit. Just a little bit when he's back there throwing the ball. Happily, he lost.
Yes.
Oh, no. But between that and then the line issue with Eric Fisher, right?
Yep.
Eric Fisher's torn Achilles. They held off the Bills' pass rush just fine with and without him. There was hardly nothing. Mahomes didn't seem like he really needed to move very often. And it looked pretty easy for him. We'll get into more of that on the next podcast, but man, the Bills really need some lineman help.
Oh, yeah, they sure do. And another thing to add on to that, Eric Fisher, they all knew. They were all going over to him, kind of consoling him, saying, man, we feel bad for you, but this was kind of for you. But kind of a cool thing, though, Viking tie into that is Mike Remmers, the old Viking right tackle guard. We kind of played him at guard a little bit, then shifted him to right tackle. He played really well at right tackle. I was kind of sad when we let him go. But he's usually the guard starter for the Chiefs, but he came in, played left tackle. He played pretty well, if I might add. So maybe not too far of a setback there for the Chiefs. But, also in that game, Cole Beasley, he had a fractured leg, and he was still playing. And I think you were mentioning that, he took some meds and kind of tried to push through it, but he just kept getting hit there, and he had to go out.
From the way I read it, it sounds like he had this before the playoffs. So in every playoff game he was playing with, it wasn't a full break in his fibula, but it was most of the way through, and a knee injury is what he played through. And he's like, well, yeah, I just took some meds and sucked it up. That's a tough man right there.
Yeah, that's not something a lot of people in general can just push through. That's but he was giving it all for his team. They got to the championship round, and unfortunately just that pass rush for the Chiefs was just insane, and they couldn't do anything about it. But again, we'll have another podcast episode on that one. We'll probably do video, I think, for that one as well. And then we'll head on to the Super Bowl. A couple announcements for the national anthem will be sung by both Eric Church and Jasmine Sullivan. They will sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. So that's going to be pretty cool. I have a feeling they might do a rendition of it. I'm sure it won't be the normal way. I'm sure they'll have something special for it. I think I heard that they had a writer kind of writing something special up for them for the national anthem. So that'll be interesting to see. Some renditions of it are just, it's like, no, just stop. But some are really, really good. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, it's, like I said, some work out, some don't. So, but usually for the Super Bowl, they get it right. So, but also for the Super Bowl, Sarah Thomas to be the first female referee in the Super Bowl. She's been refereeing now for a couple of years. I think it was against Green Bay. The Vikings were playing Green Bay. And I think Kyle Rudolph caught a ball, and he got pushed out of bounds, and he hit her, and she, fell back pretty hard. And I think that's the first time I remember seeing her, and I think that was 14 or 15. So she's been in the league quite a few years, and so that's pretty cool. That's a big step for women who want to be a referee. I mean, again, these ladies are opening the door for this next generation to come through and be like, hey, I can do it. Look at her. She's been doing it now, and I've always been kind of one to advocate for a women's football league. We have the semi-pro leagues. We even have the Minnesota Vixen. We have the Vixen, who is a semi-pro league, but I honestly think it'd be cool to have a full-on women's national football league. I think that'd be just awesome.
I think it'd be really cool, and I know the Vikings would hire any kicker out of that whole franchise. I think we were taking some pretty serious looks at Sarah Fuller when she was making more field goals than Dan Bailey over the weeks. But like you said, it's opening the door. I don't know why you couldn't hire more, and it's a big step that she's the first one and making it to a Super Bowl. I think it's just super cool, and I remember a few other games. I think she's been 5 years now, 5 or 6. Like it's got to be close to that. It feels like she's been in there for a long time. But no, it's another huge step, just like the female coaches in the NFL now. It's just bigger steps and bigger steps.
Yeah, it really is, and it's cool to see that we're making progress towards that, and everything else that's going on. It's been a crazy year, 2020. Let's forget it. It's 2021. New start, and so I think that is it for our very first video podcast, live broadcast, whatever you want to call it. I think that is it, unless you had anything to add.
I don't have much to add. I mean, like I said, there's just a lot of movement between Stafford leaving, Watson leaving, possibly Aaron Rodgers leaving.
Oh, yeah.
Because he made if you're a Packer fan, some concerning statements about players on the team. Openings. Maybe the Colts bring up Brissett again. Yeah. Because I didn't think he played terrible when they had him in. Maybe they were in the kind of win now mentality, and that's what you wanted. But maybe he comes back, and you got across the board, like you said, there'll be a lot of new faces and a lot of new places that's going to happen this year. I think that's all I got. Yeah. Like you said, just to kind of elaborate on the Aaron Rodgers thing, he said that his future and a couple of other players there in Green Bay are uncertain. So look into that as deep as you want. I don't know if that's just his frustration from losing the championship game or because they decided to go for a field goal on 4th down and goal at the 8-yard line. I don't know. Because I thought they should have went for it and tried to get the win. I mean, because if anything, you put them at their own 8-yard line for Pete's sake. And if the worst possible outcome is you force them to a punt again and you get the ball back. So I don't know. We'll see what comes of that. I think that all depends on how much Jordan Love has progressed as a quarterback through the season. We never got to see him. He was on the practice squad all year. Well, no, not on the practice squad. I apologize. He was a healthy cut, inactive for every single game. So it'll be interesting to see because if he leaves, then they're going to have to throw Love in right away. And, who knows if he's ready. But, I mean, sitting on Aaron Rodgers, you have to be at least somewhat decent. But, yeah, like you mentioned, I think that is it for us on this first video podcast. We'll come to you, I think, probably
we'll try and get another episode out here before the end of the week on the AFC and NFC championship games. Of course, then we'll do some NFL award predictions. We'll have a punishment for if we're wrong or how far we're off for some other things. But again, I think that wraps up this first ever video podcast for Northstar Sports Show with ET&B. Again, just keep on coming back. We'll give you more podcasts. We'll have more updates, shorter podcasts than our normal ones. We'll try and keep them, I think, maybe shorter than this one even, just so you can get just a little taste, and then we'll go dive in deeper on our normal podcast. So I think our normal podcast we'll try and get out on Friday or Saturdays. But I think that is it, Brandon. Again, if you wanted to add anything else.
No, I think we're pretty good here. Like you said, we're going to try to get more out. We're going to cover some local sports, more Minnesota-oriented, college, high school, what's going on with all that here shortly. And thanks for staying.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking a second to look at our podcast. We appreciate it. If you're watching it on YouTube, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe. And if you're listening on Facebook, go ahead, like it, share it, whatever you want to do. So that has been the Northstar Sports Show with ET&B. Of course, I am Ethan, the ET part of this podcast.
And I am Brandon, the B part of this podcast. I looked everywhere around the room besides the camera when I said that.
And you have been listening and watching the Northstar Sports Show.